Last night at exactly 3:17 a.m., our security cameras captured something that defies explanation. While reviewing the overnight footage from St. Mary's Memorial Hospital, I noticed a figure in a white nurse's uniform making rounds through the East Wing. Nothing unusual, except this particular nurse walked straight through a locked door without opening it. Something felt off, so I ran her face through our employee database. What I found made my blood run cold. Nurse Sarah Chen, employee number 2274, pronounced dead on February 16, 2014. 10 years ago. Yet here she was, still checking on her patients, as if she had never left. St. Mary's Memorial Hospital has served our community for over 50 years. After a devastating fire in 2013, the East Wing was permanently closed, leaving only the main building operational. But something strange has been happening in that abandoned section. Over the past month, we've received multiple reports from patients about a mysterious nurse checking their vitals at 3 a.m. in rooms that haven't been used in years. The descriptions match perfectly with Nurse Sarah Chen, a dedicated staff member who passed away during her night shift in 2014. Her story would have ended there, if not for what our cameras caught last night. Walking through the abandoned East Wing with the hospital staff, the air feels different here. This nurse station is where Sarah spent countless nights, tirelessly caring for her patients. Her former colleague, Nancy, who worked alongside her for 5 years, tells us Sarah was more than just dedicated. She lived for her patients, often working double shifts and rarely taking days off. While documenting the area, we made a chilling discovery. Her old clipboard, still sitting in her drawer, untouched since that final night. The temperature suddenly plummeted as we approached her locker, and our equipment started malfunctioning. Cameras cutting out, batteries draining inexplicably. It's as if something or someone doesn't want us disturbing this space. But what happened next would challenge everything we thought we knew about dedication and the boundaries between life and death. To comprehend the full scope of these supernatural occurrences, we launched a thorough investigation, installing night vision cameras throughout St. Mary's Memorial Hospital. What we uncovered over the next 3 weeks defied all logical explanation. The first significant testimony came from Mary Rodriguez in room 301. "I was having trouble sleeping that night because of my pain," she recounted, her voice trembling. "It was exactly 3 a.m. when I saw her." The nurse walked in, wearing an old-style uniform, the kind they don't use anymore. She moved with such purpose, checking my vitals with practiced precision. But when she touched my wrist to check my pulse, her hands were ice cold. I tried to speak, but she just smiled gently and whispered, "Rest now, everything will be better in the morning." The strange thing is, when I woke up, my pain had subsided significantly. James Cooper's experience in room 315 added another layer to the mystery. Initially skeptical, the 68-year-old retired teacher changed his perspective after his encounter. "I thought I was dreaming," he explained, showing us his medical charts. "This nurse appeared in my room, studied my IV drip intently, and made some adjustments. I remember thinking it was odd because I hadn't called for assistance. The next morning my doctor was puzzled. Someone had adjusted my medication levels during the night. The strange part? Those unexplained adjustments potentially prevented serious complications that could have developed with my original dosage." The evidence continued to mount as we interviewed the hospital staff. Linda Martinez, a veteran night shift nurse, shared her experiences from the past 6 months. Things started happening that we couldn't explain. We'd finish our shifts, leaving supplies in their usual places, only to return the next day to find everything meticulously reorganized. Not just moved, organized in exactly the way Sarah used to arrange them. She always had this specific system, and somehow that system kept appearing in our supply rooms overnight. Our security footage revealed even more inexplicable events. On multiple occasions, we captured medical equipment activating independently in empty rooms. Heart monitors would suddenly turn on, displaying accurate readings despite being disconnected. 4 bags would adjust themselves, their drip rates changing to precisely what patients needed. In the abandoned East Wing, where Sarah spent most of her career, the activity was even more intense. Temperature readings would drop dramatically, sometimes by as much as 15 degrees, in perfect circles around the old nurses' station. The hospital's maintenance logs told their own story. Chief Engineer Bob Williams showed us dozens of reports of unexplained equipment activations. These machines are on closed circuits, he explained, but somehow they're powering up at night. The strangest part? Every single activation coincided with a patient's need. We had a case where a ventilator turned itself on and started alarming 5 minutes before a patient experienced respiratory distress. The night staff reached the room just in time. What's particularly compelling is the pattern we discovered in analyzing 10 years' worth of hospital records. Every unexplained incident, every mysterious adjustment, every late-night encounter, they all bore the hallmarks of Sarah's exceptional medical expertise. Former colleagues described her as having an almost supernatural ability to anticipate patient needs. And now, it seemed that ability had literally become supernatural. The night shift nurses began keeping a detailed log of these occurrences. Their records showed an unmistakable pattern. Medical supplies would appear exactly when needed, often before the staff realized they were running low. Patient call buttons would ring moments before vital signs became critical. The distinct sound of rubber-soled shoes walking briskly down the hallway would echo through empty corridors, followed by the inexplicable improvement in a patient's condition. Most remarkably, we found that these mysterious interventions weren't random. They followed the exact same rounds schedule Sarah used to maintain, starting from the East Wing at 3 a.m. and methodically working through each floor. It seemed that even death couldn't stop her from fulfilling her duty to her patients. At exactly 3 a.m., we began our investigation of the abandoned wing, where Sarah spent her final shift. What happened in the next few minutes would change everything we thought we knew. As we approached the old nurses' station, a flickering movement caught our eye in the hallway mirror, a figure in white just at the edge of our vision. Before we could process what we'd seen, the abandoned medical equipment around us suddenly sprang to life. Monitors lit up, machines started humming, and that's when we captured it. Clear, undeniable footage of a nurse in a traditional white uniform walking straight through a solid door. Our thermal cameras revealed something even more chilling. A distinct cold spot, human-shaped, moving methodically through the hallway. The temperature dropped so dramatically that we could see our breath in the air. The silence was suddenly broken by the sharp beeping of a heart monitor in an empty room. Room 408, the very room where Sarah had treated her last patient. But what we found next made our blood run cold. There, on the patient charts at the nurses' station, were fresh notes written in unmistakable handwriting. We compared them to Sarah's old records. It was an exact match, down to her distinctive way of marking vital signs. The ink was still wet. The most inexplicable moment came when we reviewed our footage. In every frame where the figure appeared, the image was crystal clear. This wasn't some trick of light or shadow. There was Sarah, still making her rounds, still checking on her patients, her dedication surviving beyond death itself. The evidence was undeniable. We weren't just witnessing a haunting. We were witnessing something that defied everything we thought we knew about life, death, and the bonds that connect us to our calling. We made the decision to follow the figure down the dark corridor, but nothing could have prepared us for what happened next. Suddenly, all our cameras began malfunctioning at once, their screens filling with static. In that moment of confusion, we captured something on our audio equipment, a clear, unmistakable voice. "They need me. I have to check on them." The words were barely above a whisper, but the determination in that voice was chilling. Before we could react, the heavy door behind us slammed shut with such force that the walls seemed to shake. The silence that followed was shattered by the simultaneous beeping of heart monitors from multiple rooms, rooms that hadn't been used in years. Then we saw her. Standing at nurses' station was a full apparition of Sarah, as clear as any living person, methodically writing in a patient chart. Every piece of medical equipment around us began activating at once. Monitors flickering to life, IV pumps beeping, vital sign machines printing out readings. We turned to run, but somehow every corridor led us back to the nurses' station, back to Sarah, back to the overwhelming evidence that some duties transcend even death. As morning light filled the hospital corridors, we began analyzing the evidence from our terrifying night. The handwriting expert's conclusion was undeniable. The fresh notes we found matched Sarah's writing perfectly, down to the unique way she crossed her T's and wrote her numbers. But it was the hospital administrator's words that truly captured the essence of what we'd witnessed. In all my years here, she explained, I've never seen dedication quite like Sarah's. She didn't just work here, she lived for her patients. The head of security, who'd been at St. Mary's for over 20 years, shared a perspective that sent chills down our spine. Some people, he said, looking down the empty corridor, never stop caring even after they're gone. Maybe that's what's happening here. As we wrapped up our final night of filming, our cameras captured one last unexplainable moment. A subtle figure in white, walking silently into a patient's room, followed by the gentle beeping of a heart monitor. Perhaps some bonds are strong enough to transcend even death itself, and some callings are too powerful to be ended by our mortal understanding of goodbye. What we discovered in Sarah's old patient records left us speechless. Records that suggest this isn't the first time a nurse's dedication has reached beyond death. Next week, we're spending an entire night in her old ward, where staff say the most inexplicable things happen. Subscribe now, because what we found in those dusty files might explain why some nurses never truly leave their patients.